Alright guys, Krisaken isn't just an event, it's built on some of the darkest lore Forsaken has ever had. From Noli to Guest 1337, everything connects in ways most players completely missed. Let's break down the dark lore behind Krisaken. Noli is one of the most complicated characters in Forsaken, and he also happens to have the longest development cycle of any killer in the game. Back in his prime, Noli was essentially a one-man show, entertaining huge audiences and thriving on attention. He always wanted to be the star, bending the rules just enough to keep the spotlight firmly on himself. That craving for attention defined everything about him, even down to his crown, an item that Noli didn't earn fairly, but instead scammed off someone else. His eventual disappearance from Roblox's systems ended up being both a curse and a blessing. While it removed him from the public eye, it also froze his reputation in time, making him even more infamous. Unsurprisingly, every admin despised Noli, especially after the chaos he left behind. His influence didn't stop there either. Noli's big show inspired a new generation of hackers, including figures like 007 and 7, who took that spectacle-driven chaos even further. During development, Noli went through 3 separate moveset reworks, with one version even allowing him to duplicate Void Stars as traps, something that proved far too broken to balance. In the end, Noli joined Forsaken by his own choice, given a chance to perform on what was essentially the stage of a lifetime. Even now, his hallucinations have been tweaked more times than anyone can count, and early plans would have let him break the game in ways that were simply impossible to manage. Nosferatu was originally conceived from the Vampire Bundle and developed in late September as a so-called bite-sized killer. He is a pop and was inspired by Rivers is a Vampire by Bear Ghost. Unlike Noli's desperate need for attention, Nosferatu possesses a grandiose arrogance, seeing himself as inherently superior. According to Striga, the lore NPC, true vampires are cursed beings, forced to drain the life of other Robloxians. That curse originated from the Necrobloxicon, which now remains in the possession of a certain brute. If Nosferatu were ever to encounter that brute, the clash would be brutal and bloody. Vest teased Nosferatu as early as September, even jokingly stating, "This sucks." Originally, Nosferatu's personality was meant to resemble Arthur Bennett from JRWI, but that concept evolved over time. Despite his powerful in-game abilities, Nosferatu is canonically weaker than many other killers. At some point, he made a deal with an agent of the Spectre, a decision eerily similar to another infamous character's descent. Bilderman and Dusiker are among the earliest Robloxians, deeply tied to the foundations of Robloxia itself. Dusiker in particular is closely entwined with magic and creativity, while Bilderman, alongside a close friend, helped build modern Robloxia exactly how they envisioned it. Despite his immense power and wealth, Bilderman remains humble, genuinely caring about those around him. Long ago, alongside Shedletsky, he made a promise to a close friend, still hoping they're doing okay wherever they are now. Bilderman has always wondered why Jane and John disappeared for so long, never fully understanding the silence they left behind. On a lighter note, he's also famously picky about food, especially pizza toppings. Dusiker, meanwhile, is a close friend of Shedletsky and stood by him at his lowest points. They become noticeably uneasy if someone tries to remove their pumpkin, and despite their troubles, they don't mind people like Taff, though to time makes them deeply uncomfortable. Dusiker doesn't fully understand how physical beings eat food, and they know far more than they ever reveal, deliberately keeping information hidden to protect others. Both Bilderman and Dusiker were taken before the war even began, altering everything that followed. Before going deeper into individual characters, it's important to understand how the 12 days of Krisaken actually works, because that structure is part of the story. For those who don't remember, this event is all about giving individual characters their own moment in the spotlight, with each day delivering new information, lore, and behind-the-scenes details. This time around, characters can either be revealed in pairs, like today's focus on 1x1 and Shedletsky, or individually, depending on what the devs choose for that day. The idea is to let every character have their own dedicated time to shine, rather than cramming everything into a single post. Throughout these 12 days, we can expect a mix of development tidbits, deeper lore insights, fun character facts, and even small comments from the dev team. There's also a dedicated Discord channel where all of this information is being posted, making it much easier to keep track of everything as it drops. The very first entry already sets the tone perfectly, focusing on themes like redemption, second chances, hatred, and spite, all through the dynamic between 1x1 and Shedletsky. From a lore perspective, the relationship between these two is extremely tense. 1x1 loathes Shedletsky, viewing him as inferior, while Shedletsky fears 1x1, knowing that he's essentially staring at a darker reflection of himself. In a hypothetical scenario, both characters would meet at SFOTH, with Shedletsky wielding Illumina and 1x1 wielding contorted Demonshanks, symbolizing their opposing paths. There are also plenty of smaller but interesting details. Shedletsky once took part in a chicken kneading contest before being taken, and somehow won. Meanwhile, 1x1's name echoed across Robloxia during his initial rise to power. From a development standpoint, 1x1 is currently the only base killer with a publicly known rework, and he's also notoriously difficult to balance, to the point where some testers actively dislike working with him. Shedletsky, on the other hand, is considered one of the easiest survivors to balance. Both characters' milestone skins even parallel one another, representing their climb back up SFOTH, but for completely different reasons and motivations. Interestingly, 1x1 went through 3 different milestone concepts before the final versions were chosen. Guest 1337's death completely changed the course of the war, causing it to stagnate far longer than it should have. Slasher, unlike Taff, is mute by choice. If Slasher ever tried to speak again after all these years, their voice would be dry, damaged, and barely recognizable. Before the war twisted Slasher into what they are now, they could have been good friends with Guest 1337. Guest's perception of Slasher changed the moment he saw Slasher's face. Yet Guest always kept an open heart. When it comes to saving others, Guest would sacrifice himself without hesitation, no matter who needed help. Slasher's breakout from captivity was carefully coordinated by the operator, alongside other prisoners of the facility. There had been another attempt to free Slasher before the massive Area 51 breakout, but it failed. The ancient Necrobloxicon, tied to a great evil, has existed far longer than most realize, though the Spectre's influence has nothing to do with the voice Slasher hears. Through it all, Guest remained understanding, recognizing that people sometimes do things they're not proud of. That's the dark lore behind Chrysokin so far. If you enjoyed this breakdown, what day surprised you the most? Subscribe and hit the bell for more Forsaken.